joining me for a short, quick hitter edition of our Operational Reality with Rocco Million on my group, Nonpartisans for Progress. Please join or follow the group if you have not already done so. Again, that's Nonpartisans for Progress. Join the page and group. Please invite your friends, share this stream to your favorite timelines and favorite groups and pages. So today, I'm doing a short, quick hitter edition of our Operational Reality. I'm going to talk about the question, it's very controversial. All right. And that is all cops bad? We always hear that. And, so many people are offended at just the concept or the thought. And it could be very it could be very provocative too to say. So, I figured this is a good thing to talk about and discuss and get in a little bit more depth with this because I understand it. Coming from a police and military family, again, I'm an active duty disabled vet, and my uncle was a cop, and he was loved, bigger than life person, pretty much the patriarch of our family. And he was a cop, and he was a great man, a great family man. He put me, I used to commit felonies every day. I used to rob trains. I used to sell drugs. I had a little crew, steal cars. I used to rob houses. And he literally would put me over his job. He would never throw me away into the broken justice system that was. And I have a lot of respect for him. I love him. God rest his soul. He died a few years back in a bad accident. But I can't deny the reality. And I remember trying to ask myself and thinking about these questions. I've wrestled with this stuff for a long time. Being active duty in the military, I was a Republican. I come from a right-wing background. So the only way I got to where I'm at now is by constantly questioning things and thinking about things, thinking things through. And so when it comes to cops, when I was thinking about, well, are all cops bad? And I don't want to believe that. It would really hurts my soul to think that. Well, I know my Uncle Bobby wasn't bad, so how dare they say all cops were bad? That's the cognitive dissonance that I would have myself, and I wouldn't want to. I would say, it's just a few bad apples, like every profession, you can't lump people together. But in this circumstance, it's different. And it's much different. And I'll tell you why. Because as this meme alludes to, when we're talking about all cops being bad, we're not talking about their personality. We're not talking about how they are as a family man in their personal lives. We are talking about their role in an oppressive system working for a fascist government that is actively engaged in economic and police terror on the majority. We're talking about their place in that system. We're talking about all cops being enforcement arm of our fascist government. And I even got our district attorney to admit that. I asked him and he even admitted it. It's hard to deny when you go over how government targets unemployment and keeps people poor and unemployed. You can't say the government's not fascist. And then at that point, you have to admit that if you're a cop, you work for this fascist government. You're the enforcement arm for the owning class. You protect the rights of property. You're not here to serve and protect, especially in the United States. The Supreme Court allows police to, rape and rob over flowers, literally violate our rights over flowers or over peaceful behavior, over vice, lots of other things. Though, what I always say is if you pledge to carry out the law, all right, you're pledging to carry out the law, and many of these laws are unjust and they're inhumane to begin with. All right, so when you pledge to carry out inhumane and unjust laws, you cannot be good by definition. You're part of systemic abuse at that point. So when you put on your police uniform, you are a domestic terrorist. Just because it's legal doesn't change the fact. The cops that chased down slaves that ran away and hung them and lynched them and did whatever, they were not simply doing their job. All right. These were not good people just doing their job. These were maybe good people, but that had bought into a systemic system of oppression, and they allowed themselves to be used as tools of that oppression, and the same is happening now. When cops play, those laws are unjust and inhumane. So just like you would say, you wouldn't say ISIS isn't all bad. There's just some bad apples in ISIS, or but no, if you pledge support for Sharia law, all right, you're pledging support to uphold laws that are inhumane and unjust, just like a cop, and so you cannot be good at that point. And if you do change your mind and you don't believe it anymore, then you're killed or you're shunned. And same with cops. You're killed or fired or put in jail. Whistleblowers are tortured in our country. We lock them up. We kill them. We do all kinds of, we ruin them. This is our system. So when you say all cops are bad, they're part of that system. So yes, they are bad. Just like I had to come to terms, me being active duty. I supported for-profit imperialism that killed innocent people all over the world for no other reason than profit for the 1%. I had to come to terms with that. It's not fun. It makes you sick to your stomach. You want to throw up. You want to punch something, but it doesn't change the reality. If you ignore that reality, you might feel better in the short term, but you're being dishonest with yourself. You're lying to yourself, faking it to make it. You're just like the Germans in Nazi Germany, who thought they had no responsibility, the German citizens. But yet when we liberated the work camps and the concentration camps, we forced those citizens to deal with the systemic abuse and the suffering and death it created. And real quick, they had their delusions that were based on fantasies were destroyed. Now they were confronted with the brutality of their reality. That's what we got to do today, too. But it is a fact, all cops are a part of our system. They work for our fascist government. They are the enforcement arm of a fascist government, protecting the rights of the owning class, the property class. And so, many laws are inhumane and unjust. You think about weed laws, where cops are able to literally rob you. They could take your house. They can seize your bank account without even charging you with a crime. They can literally steal your stuff. And last year, more people had their stuff stolen with civil asset forfeiture law by the police than all crime combined. I mean, that's a sad, sad statistic. But this is the system that the cops serve. So cops may go into this thinking they want to be the good guys. I know I wanted to be going to the military thinking America was the good guys, and I wanted to protect freedom. That's why I went to the military and took an oath to our Constitution. I was very naive. I was very brainwashed. And so I ended up being counterproductive to my own goals. And I ended up supporting for-profit imperialism. But I was able to grow and see my faults and call things what they were. And the same with police. Even though I had an uncle that was a cop, even though I had friends that are cops, and I know they were good people, and but the reality is when they put on that uniform, they are state-sponsored terrorists. My uncle, didn't throw me away in the broken system because he knew it was broken, and he wouldn't throw away his nephew in that kind of a system. He was too good of a family man, but yet he threw away other people in that same system over a flower or over a peaceful behavior like sex or some other vice. You know what I mean? That's inhumane, unjust. You ruin lives. Whole generations, whole communities destroyed by the for-profit war on vice. And it's about, like I said, it's about profit. It's not about public safety. Now, cops may lie to themselves and convince themselves it is about public safety, but we know better, don't we? Because drug law doesn't lower addiction rates. Drug law doesn't, ensure better outcomes for society. It's the opposite. Drug law ensures worse outcomes for society. Okay, they take a problem and make it exponentially worse by pushing it onto the black markets with no government oversight or government regulations into the shadows to be ruled by the for-profit black market. That's always going to be worse for society and individuals. It's always better to focus on harm reduction, all right, and to treat addiction as a disease and to treat drugs like any vice and commodity and dangerous commodity. Regulate the industry. You don't let kids buy it. You have certain rules. You can't drive while under the influence. That's what you do. But you can't criminalize nature and peaceful behavior and call it for the public purpose, especially when those same illegal drugs have legal synthetic counterparts on the for-profit healthcare side. And we are giving our kids, we're mass dosing our kids with for-profit drugs like Adderall, which is worse than cocaine. Okay, the illegal drug. Okay, so it's not about public safety. It's not about protecting kids. Drug law is about power and control and profit. That's what this is about. It was never about public safety. As a matter of fact, there's a story where there was before the turn of the century, most drugs were legal. And you could look in a Sears and Roebuck's calendar and order cocaine and heroin or, Brompton's cocktail or this and that, it was all legal. And there was a sort of addiction epidemic that ensued. And it was because they didn't know what they were getting. And so the way that the government solved this problem for the general welfare was not by making drugs illegal. First of all, they knew they would have had a revolution at that point. Americans would have never tolerated such an overreach of government at that point in time. So they had to go about it a different way. And what they did was they passed label laws. And when companies had to label these products as being dangerous and having the ingredients of cocaine and being addictive and this and that, people self-regulated. Because believe it or not, people don't want to be strung out. People don't want to be junkies, slaves to drugs. That's just a reality. So when people are educated and, they have choice, they're able to make good decisions. And when they have hope, as now when we're fostering starvation wage environments, inflicting economic and police terror, that's radicalizing people. You beat a dog every day and feed it gunpowder, that dog's going to be crazy. And it's not the dog's fault. It's the systemic factors it was forced to live under that made that dog crazy. The same applies in this scenario. When we're criminalizing nature and peaceful behavior, we're inflicting police terror, we're raping, robbing, and killing over, drugs, over flowers, over vice. That radicalizes people. That makes people extremists. They want to take a machine gun to the baseball field. They want to go to school with a machine gun. And also, subconsciously, people see, other people losing their lives and their freedom over a flower, all for profit. Even subconsciously, they see people getting their lives thrown away over peaceful behavior or vice. That's telling them profit is more important than people or society. When people see homeless people suffering and dying, without shelter, and around the corner they see foreclosed, empty houses. We're being taught from birth to put profit over people in society. When people are seeing their loved ones and friends dying of preventable, treatable illness, same thing. We're being taught to put profit over people in society. You can't be then surprised when people start to lose their humanity, when society becomes radicalized, when it becomes dog eat dog, and no one has respect for life. Life becomes cheap. That's the natural flow of things. It's the natural result of inflicting economic terror and police terror on our society. And cops have a part to play, and so we have to make them face their reality, face our reality. We can't let people live in a cocoon. We can't let people live in the delusion that's based on a fantasy, so that they could sleep easy and rationalize away systemic abuse and rationalize away the brutality of our reality, or ignore it and deny it. We have to make them, account for it, address it, and account for our reality. And the only way you do it is by talking the hard truth. And that means sometimes you're going to be at risk. I'm at risk of getting punched in the mouth, and I've been more than once. So, it ain't no thing. And, I'm at risk of being called a communist or lazy, a mooch. I'm at risk of being socially ostracized and shunned by my family, which I am, talked down upon, all sorts of things. And if I become powerful enough and my voice becomes strong enough, then I would be killed like Martin Luther or Malcolm X or any of the other social revolutionaries, or put in jail like Eugene Debs, any of the other social revolutionaries. That's what happens in America too. We have to accept our reality. America is the biggest terrorist state in the world, bigger than Russia, Iran, North Korea, and China put together. Literally, they don't even come close. They don't have bases all over the world. They never demonstrated an ability and a capacity to use nukes on civilians. They don't got everybody surrounded. They're not toppling democratic nations with for-profit imperialism. This is all stuff America does. They don't team up with right-wing extremists, fundamentalists, religious nuts all over the world against left-wing socialist movements. This is what we do as a government. The more we ignore these systemic abuses and this horrible reality, the longer it's going to go on, the worse it's going to get. Because you don't want to feel sick to your stomach. You don't want to admit you were wrong. You don't want to look dumb. All right? Get over it, man. People are dying. Don't be more offended by my fucking words that I'm speaking than by the reality that they are describing. Seriously. This is sickening. People are being killed over a flower, all in the name of profit, with weed laws. All right, we rape and rob and kill over peaceful behavior and flowers, and I'm called the radical? Are you serious? Seriously, because cops serve no-knock warrants and warrants on weed for weed violations all the time, and people die. Legally get killed over a flower. Cops use civil asset forfeiture or criminal asset forfeiture to take property and seize money legally, over a flower, over a peaceful behavior. You can have cavity searches too, if the conditions are right. So you get raped over this stuff if the conditions are right. This is not a free democracy. This is not a good society. This is not how you ensure domestic tranquility and the general welfare as guaranteed by our constitution and our social contract. That's the opposite. Cops need to stop wasting all of these resources on crimes of consent amongst adults and start focusing on victims. Start focusing on violent crime. Focus on environmental crime. Focus on financial crime. These are the crimes that truly lower our standard of living and create addiction problems to begin with. Okay, that you go to the root issues. All right. Like I said, people don't want to be addicted. So you want to stop addiction. You give them, you got to restore systemic hope. People got to be able to have hope for a better tomorrow. They got to have opportunity to better themselves, a ladder out of poverty. Okay, this is all the stuff that a federal job guarantee does. All right, it would restore solidarity in our community. You know, people would be working together in green, sustainable ways on their own community for living wages. All right, now they have a way to survive without selling drugs. Now they could raise their family properly, you know, in a strong way, you know, with parental supervision and proper necessities that are required to raise healthy, well-balanced children and productive children. This all goes together. And so that's why I take the time to make sure, you know, I talk about these issues. Even, I know I'm not going to be popular. I know a lot of people that hear this are not going to like this. You know, but this isn't a popularity contest for me. I could care less if you like me. Matter of fact, the only reason I do this is because I know, you know, I don't give a fuck. You know, I live in terror every day. You know, I'm in pain every day, starving every month. Okay, as a disabled veteran, and I can't even get the health care that I need. I've had multiple spinal surgeries. So I could give a fuck less who likes me and who likes what I have to say. All right, because it ain't about you. It's about me living with myself. It's about me being able to look my son in the eyes and know I did everything I could to, you know, speak out against oppression and terrorism, and to speak up and defend the oppressed and the disenfranchised in our community. Because I call myself a Christian, and I'm not a hypocrite like most of American. You know, I actually follow the teachings of Jesus, which makes me sort of a socialist revolutionary who wants to feed the masses and hang out with the disenfranchised and empower criminals and, you know, the prostitutes, you know, and end capitalism and, you know, shun the greedy. You know, this is what Jesus stood for. I will never apologize for doing what's right. And you shouldn't either. Don't let them get you in this exploitive social hierarchy of ours. Keep you silent. You know, you're afraid of losing your own social status. You're afraid of being socially ostracized, being labeled. You're afraid of not being liked. You're afraid of being victimized yourself. You know, because you know subconsciously that you see it. You see all the other people victimized. You don't want to be in their shoes. So, you know, it's better just to not make waves, right? Wrong. Because eventually it will get to you. When we overlook systems of oppression now, look at the drug war. First of all, it only started after a long propaganda campaign to get white America to associate drugs with minorities and the minority communities. Once the white Americans only associated the issue with minorities, they didn't care about losing that right because they didn't think it would affect them. All right, and then these systems of oppression that are only affecting the fringes of society at that time, and they're small and it's, you know, localized. You know, they start to grow up and they become monsters that need fuel, and the fuel is all of us, white, black, rich or poor sometimes. Unless you're super rich, then you know you get out of anything. But you know, these systems of oppression affect everyone, even the super rich too, because it makes society dog eat dog, and then they can't bring their kids to the playground, or else they're going to be shot up on a baseball field. Even lawmakers, you know, because eventually it spills over, or eventually your reality is crashed by a cop pulling you over, and that cop had a bad day and was attracted to your wife. So he decided to do some piggish shit. And you had to learn the hard way that they could do whatever they want. You have no rights without money. Justice itself is for sale in our society. You know, then you learn, then you understand, then you become, you know, an activist. Then you want to speak out. But by then it's too late, you know. By then the damage is done for you too. So, you know, the whole point of this is, you know, everybody's being radicalized by this. The cops are being radicalized as they're inflicting inhumane laws. They become desensitized like a person who beats a dog and feeds it gunpowder every day. It takes a pretty sick person to do that. You know, even if they started off just thinking that, They wanted to fight some dogs and they didn't think about the consequences. Doing that every day will make them a sick person. Same goes for the cop. Economic and police terror on people every day. Inflicting police terror is going to make you desensitized. You're going to start to think everybody is a piece of shit. You're gonna start to view everybody as a perpetrator, as an enemy combatant, instead of an American that's entitled to certain due process rights and certain human and civil liberties. Shit. And cops are completely lost like the rest of us. I was pulled over by some cops and and they wanted to search my vehicle. Thank God they did, because I had a bunch of weed. The kid that I was with put weed under my seat and everything else. So I played my hand. I know the law, and I told him, no, I'm going to stick with my Fourth Amendment, sir, against the unreasonable search and seizure. I was legally pulled over on the side of the road. You have no reason to stop me. So you have no reason to legally search my vehicle. And he didn't like that at all. He flipped out and said, oh, you want to be a wise ass, huh? Well, we're just going to have your car towed. Okay, we're just going to have your car towed, and I could do that. I could suspect anything, blah, 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 blah. If I want, I could go get a warrant and search your car, but you're not even worth it, blah, blah, blah. So, whatever. He did that, and I'm thinking, I asked him this. I said, dude, isn't your job to protect our civil liberties? Doesn't it say right there on your car to protect and serve? And I bet you never even read our Bill of Rights. And really, I know he didn't, because he actually said to me when I invoked the Fourth Amendment, he said, what does your right against self-incrimination have to do with anything? And I said, that's the right against self-incrimination. That's the Fifth Amendment. I'm talking about the Fourth Amendment against illegal search and seizure, unreasonable search and seizure. The fact that I'm pulled over legally means you have no right to come up to me and bother me. If I'm not under arrest, you got to go. And I don't have to let you search anything, and he didn't like that and towed my car. And I was a disabled veteran. I told him I had my service dog with me and I didn't have a leash for him. And we were on the highway, and this dickhead didn't care. He kicked me out, made me walk home with my service dog and 2 multiple spinal surgeries, walk home on a busy highway without a leash. That's protecting and serving. That's being the good guy. And these aren't one-off stories. If you challenge a cop in any way, this is the reaction. It's well known where I'm from. If you run from the police, you're going to get a beating regardless. That's the price you pay for running from the police. Right or wrong, you're getting that beating, and that's wrong. That's wrong. Cops are supposed to de-escalate situations. If I go up to a cop and say, hey, you know what, you're a dumb pig, that, and talk in a nice low voice, and as long as I don't disturb the peace, that cop, that didn't break no laws. That cop is supposed to de-escalate the situation. Instead, if I go up to a cop and even invoke my rights, they're going to beat your ass, or at least make you pay financially in one way or another. And they're supposed to be protecting and serving, and these rights, they're supposed to be making sure that these rights are applied equally under the law to all, and that's not what they're doing. And so we have to call them out. Why would you be mad that I'm invoking my right that you're supposed to be protecting? You should be happy that I understand my rights. And, you should be telling me, great, because we don't want to live in a tyrannical government world, police state where, law enforcement has full authority to just, do whatever they want. Go in your house, search your car, search your house without the slightest provocation or suspicion. We don't want to live in that kind of world. All right. And we could make crime pretty much non-existent if we did that. Literally, if we gave police complete power to go in any house, to do anything they wanted without suspicion, we could pretty much eliminate crime. But, I mean, who wants to live in that world? So, to give up freedom for safety is a fool's errand. You end up losing both freedom and security. All right. There's a balance, and you have to play that balance, but you don't violate civil liberties unless it's going to help the general welfare. If laws, If you're passing a law, if you're criminalizing a behavior, and the law you're passing is actually has worse consequences than the illegal criminalized behavior, you know that law is counterproductive to the public purpose and general welfare. That law is wrong and counterproductive and needs to be repealed. So when you have a law like that says that I could be put in jail for 20 years over a flower like marijuana, you know, this is a law that is the consequences of the law are far worse. They far out exceed any consequences of the illegal substance that the law is supposed to protect us from. Do you understand this? The law is supposed to protect us from this illegal substance, but yet the law is causing a much worse negative consequence for society and for myself with a 20 years prison sentence, or by being killed on a weed warrant, or by having my assets stolen, you know, because I'm suspected of selling weed or liking the wrong flower and growing weed. Or I could have be cavity searched by cops looking for weed. Rape, basically, because if you have a person do repeated cavity searches on you, I don't care. They say they're looking for flowers or whatever. You're gonna feel raped, okay? And this is not how you get This is not how you get domestic tranquility. This is how you get a dog eat dog world. This is how you get a radicalized extremist society. So we have to call it out. We have to expose it. Cops don't even understand the law. They don't understand what they're doing. They go along for the ride. It's so easy to go along with the status quo. When I talk lower, American hero, John Kiriakou, and I asked him about this. I said, you know, about the Lucifer Effect in particular. You know, and this is refers to Dr. Lombardi and his study on deferred responsibility. And I said, you know, this is about when people, even good people, are willing to do horrible things simply because they're ordered to do so, especially by a perceived authority like, you know, crown or country. You know, and I said, you know, can you talk about that? And how does that work? You know, how do good people even do these horrible things? How does this Lucifer effect work? And, you know, he called it the banality of evil. And, you know, and what he experienced it in reality, because out of the 14 section chiefs that were given these new enhanced interrogation orders and training, you know, torture training, torture orders, he was the only one to deny them, and on ethical grounds, on principle, you know, and say, no way, this is wrong. I don't care what you call it. That's torture. I don't care what law says it's okay. That's torture. That's a war crime. It's against Geneva Convention, you know, and I will not be a part of it. And he was a whistleblower, and because of that, at this point, he wasn't a whistleblower yet. He just refused the orders. And because of that, they targeted his career and ruined him, wouldn't give him promotions, told him he had a very shocking lack of dedication to the war on terror, because he wasn't willing to be a terrorist, because he wasn't willing to, you know, look the other way and betray everything that our country stands for. He wasn't willing to commit evil in our names. All right. And then he eventually exposed our torture program in America, you know, and he was the only man to do time over our torture program for exposing it. Literally, meanwhile, while Gina Haspel, who was the director of that torture program, they called her Bloody Gina, you know, she was promoted to run the CIA. So, not, you know, we put the people, we ruin the people who tell the truth and do the right thing and expose American evil that's being conducted in our name. And we promote and cover up for the people doing evil and committing the evil in America's name, like Gina Haspel, like Hillary Clinton, like, you know, all of them, you know. So this is why it's so important to, you know, when these people talk, first of all, when whistleblowers talk and when people are talking and they're exposing the simple logic of our operational reality, we have to listen. And we have to understand that and absorb it and really think it through and think about what the implications mean, because people are risking everything, and they risk their freedom, they risk their blood, their life. For us to turn our head and look the other way when those freedoms are destroyed is sacrilege. It's a sin. It's wrong, and shame on us. That's not patriotic. We need to stand up in solidarity and fight back. We need to demand that our government, our socially owned government, satisfy its constitutional mandate to the public purpose, first and foremost, as mandated by the by the Constitution. We have to demand that. We have to demand a stop to the for-profit war on drugs and for-profit justice in general. All right, because when you put quotas on police, when you make police need to get revenue to stay operational, this is counterproductive to the mission of police to serve and protect the community. Now they have to stay operational. They need revenue. So, they have quotas to meet. So they stop seeing the citizens that they're supposed to be serving as citizens with due process rights and civil liberties. They start to see them as enemy combatants, and who the ends will justify the means. And they start to see people as enemy combatants instead of civil American citizens with rights. They start to see you as enemy combatants, and the ends justify the means. That's why it's counterproductive to our general welfare, because this only makes violent, dysfunctional societies. Anything else? Anything want to talk about? Anybody disagree or anything they want to talk about? Not all all cops aren't bad. Okay, let's talk about this right now. Okay, I don't know who's talking about this, so let me just say no. Not all cops all cops aren't bad. They're saying it's a fallacious argument that is illogical and unsupportable. Okay, and easily I could defeat this right here with simple logic. Okay, because every single cop pledges to carry out the law. Okay, all the laws. And when many of those laws, in fact, are inhumane and unjust, period, then all cops are bad. They are part of that oppressive system. Okay, even if they, in their home life, they're good people, good family men. When they put on the uniform, they are now domestic terrorists. They are now criminalizing nature and peaceful behavior. They are now killing people over flowers. They are now evicting people over money. Okay, they are now, they are instruments. They are the enforcers of the ruling class, of the owning class. They serve the property holding class. That's it. They don't serve all of society. And so that's not the public purpose. That's a rogue organization working for the ruling class at the public purpose expense. That's a tyrannical government, police states. So good cops can never be part of that. Good cops can never pledge to uphold that system. Okay, good cops would be whistleblowers and speak out against that, and then they'd be fired or killed or put in jail. That's why we say there's no such thing as a good cop. A cop works for our fascist government. We have a government that is fascist. It works for the private profits of the 1% over its constitutional mandate to the public purpose. That is fascism in essence. Okay? So cops work for this fascist government as the enforcers. So they are an oppressive force by definition. Okay? They are carrying out law. So cops work for this oppressive force. They are by definition an oppressive force carrying out inhumane, unjust laws at the behest of capital for profit. Whether they understand this or not, this is fact. Okay. Now I don't even blame a lot of people. I certainly don't blame young guys that are joining the police force or the military who think that they're the good guys and America's the good guys and they're trying to do good. I don't blame them. They were brainwashed like the rest of us. But at a certain point, you have to be responsible for your actions. At a certain point, you have to admit reality. regardless of who it dirties. You have to admit the truth. And at a certain point, you are responsible for your own actions. So whether or not you've been brainwashed or not, if you are out there bringing Jews to the oven, I don't care if you were ordered to do it or not, or if that's just your job or not. You are responsible. I don't care if you were a civilian in Nazi Germany and you didn't want to speak out because you thought you'd be killed, or that's no excuse. Okay, we didn't let them get away with that. All right. If you do bad things, you are accountable and you should be called out for it. Like John McCain. Just because he dies, we should not whitewash history. We should not pretend that this was a good man. I think he thinks he was a good man. I think he thinks he was a good man, but you cannot be a good man if you think that, following our Constitution is evil. If you think that providing people with health care and education is evil, if you think that making sure people don't die needlessly of preventable illnesses because they don't have money, and that's evil, you can't be good. If you think it's okay to spread for-profit imperialism worldwide, all to make profit for the defense industry and for-profit capitalists, if you think that that's okay and justifiable, then you can't be a good person. These are just operating facts. You could think it, and you could be sincere and really believe and buy into the lies that you're told. But I'm able to destroy those lies with simple logic of our actual operational reality. I can show easily where our for-profit imperialism causes so much blowback, radicalizes whole generations to want to kill us, destabilizes whole regions of the world, causing massive humanitarian refugee crisis with massive mass migration all over the world, and refugee crisis is all over the world. So that would never be in the interest of the public. Okay. We have to call it out, and just because it's not comfortable, and just because it's kind of sickening to talk about. This guy just died. It does feel dirty, but we wouldn't feel weird about calling out Osama bin Laden when he died. And really, compared it to John McCain has contributed to far more death and destruction of innocents than Osama bin Laden ever could have dreamed of. Seriously. I mean, far, far more. America has contributed to more suffering and death than with for-profit imperialism than any civilization in history. Okay, and ignoring these facts is not going to make it go away. We have to admit the truth. Don't be more offended by the words that I'm saying. Be offended by the reality that my describe. Reality, work to make people answer for that reality, confront that reality. So they have to they can't fall back on their delusions and ignore and rationalize the systemic abuses that we inflict every day in our society. The fact of the matter is, you could be the best cop in the world, but if you're going along to get along, you're no better than the worst cop. We just had a case where there was two cops, and the one cop was beating this guy's head off the ground. He was in cuffs. And the other cop was sitting there watching him. Okay, and it went viral. And because of that, our DA in Newcastle was forced to take action. Or the chief of police was forced to take action, and fire him. Really, the DA didn't take action because he should have been charged. That cop should have been charged with attempted murder, and with a myriad of other charges because he breached his the trust of the people. As a cop, you have to be held to a higher standard than everybody. As active duty military, we had to be held to a higher standard than everybody. Because with great power comes great responsibility. Literally. I know it's corny, but it's the truth. So cops have the power to kill and to take away freedom. They must be held to a higher standard of living than anybody. Okay, it's not unfair to judge a cop. It's a necessity for a free functioning democracy. Okay, it's a necessity to criticize government when government is wrong. All right. When cops are being counterproductive, we have to call it out. All right. I know many cops, even DAs, like the DA I was talking to. They see how counterproductive our drug war really is. He even said it in not so many words. I mean, he said they don't even prosecute crimes for marijuana, small possession for marijuana, because even though it's legal, it's wrong. He said it. The DA told me, he said, look, I don't even use civil asset forfeiture, even though it's legal, because it's wrong. So, but then in the other breath, they'll say, oh, well, I can't just not enforce drug law. It's the law, or I don't make the laws, Rocco. I just follow the laws. We have to change it and change the law in Congress. That's the way our system works. No, we change it everywhere we can, and the DA locally has all the power. They decide what agenda gets pursued, what crimes get pursued. And if he don't want to prosecute drug crime, he is free to do that. And he is free to focus all those resources on crimes that would really raise our standard of living. Crimes against people, landlords, slumlords having these nasty apartments all over town, never fixing anything, letting the water be poisoned, letting paint be poisoned, letting, all these safety violations, letting them be fire traps. These are the things where cops need to be getting involved. They'll say, oh, that's not our job. That's a civil matter. Bullshit. Who are you protecting then? This is how you would protect and serve for real. Stop the companies from dumping into our rivers. Stop the companies from polluting. Stop violent crime. Put cops on foot in the worst areas in on every street, in the worst areas of town. I guarantee you crime goes down in those areas. This is how you and give everybody access to living wage work, rebuilding our communities. Give them hope and a ladder out of poverty into the private sector. This is how you combat addiction. That's how you combat crime. Have strong public schooling. Strong social safety nets. So that, families can be strong and mothers and fathers could stay home. One parent can stay home with kids, teaching them the right way so that they're not vulnerable to drugs and crime and gangs because both parents got to work full time or because parents got to be on the black market just to survive with starvation wage jobs. This is all simple logic stuff and it must be said. So don't worry about ruffling a few feathers. You're going to have to take it for the team. This has to be done. And so, let them call you the names, whatever, when people whenever people come out and are speaking against the status quo, they're always going to get shit, even if they're completely right. Martin Luther King, when he was alive, he was looked at as an agitator, a disruptor, someone just, a race baiter, as they would call him today. The Black Panthers, all of that. They're called, terrorists and agitators, when really they're just a social justice organization that was trying to protect their communities from police terror that was inflicted on a systemic level and still is. And yet people buy the propaganda and because they want to be able to rationalize away the brutality of our reality. They want to be able to sleep easy in denial of the evil that's being committed in their name. We can't let them do that. Do you understand? The fact is, I'm sorry to tell you, all cops are bad. It's not a comment on their person. This is a comment on their place in our oppressive system. Just like the meme says, okay, when you pledge to carry out inhumane laws, unjust laws, you cannot be good. You are therefore a part of the problem. It's not about a couple bad apples. It's about a whole corrupted for-profit system. Okay? So that's what it's about. And does anyone else want to tell me no and have any kind of argument that they can make to try to make sense of how I just dismantled his comment? He said it's a fallacious argument that I'm making. It's illogical and unsupportable. No, it's actually simple logic. You can't pledge to support inhumane law and be good. It's impossible. You're part of the inhumane law. Without you, that inhumane law don't get carried out. You're part of the problem. If the military and police didn't go to work tomorrow, with everybody else, the oligarchy would be over in a day. So, it's not a few bad apples. It's a bad system that, we are protecting by not speaking truth, by not speaking the harsh truth. We are covering for evil. We're being silent in the face of oppression. And somehow, these people think they're the patriots. They're the ones that are saluting the flag and standing for the national anthem. And yet they could care less about our actual rights that are being burnt and dismantled on a systemic level. They could care less about our Constitution. They could care less about our public purpose. And they think they're the patriots. They have no clue. They say, oh, well, shit, government is inefficient. We need the private sector and the free markets. That's more efficient. Yeah, like somehow corporate bureaucracy is more efficient than government bureaucracy. Okay, I'd rather have a bureaucracy is bad regardless. But if you're going to have bureaucracy, I'd rather have them be elected and accountable to the public and working for the public purpose instead of being only accountable to their board members and working for profit and being unelected. Think about it. It's just complete insanity. So that's how, you just destroy these logics with these arguments with simple logic. And that's how you force these people to confront our reality, because in fact, good cops like my uncle, they didn't throw me away in that horrible system, but he threw countless others away in that same system for the same crimes that I was let go for, that I was deemed too important to go into that system for. So I love him, and I will always be grateful for him not throwing me away. But in reality, no matter how much it hurts, we can't deny that the reality is he threw away countless others over profit, ultimately, over a flower and peaceful behavior. And so he was a tool of our oppressive and fascist system, as I was myself in active duty Navy. This is just a fact.